At least it's a nice sunny day, right?
Yes, it is. Look at that. It is time
I feel like
for us
we're
to
being
go.
watched.
Yes. Look at it. It's time to go, 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 go.
Run! Spy drones.
Yes.
Here, catch. Was that Anthony Magnabosco walking across the street?
Might have been. I like that vehicle, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like that Mustang. Let it go.
Yeah. Hey, wait, Eric, your voice has changed.
Yes.
All right.
Yay.
Yes, and here we are. Welcome to Talk Heathen, Season 3, Episode 3. It is January 20th, and I am here with Mandisa Thomas. How are you?
I'm doing well, Jamie. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I'm just going to casually adjust this earbud like nothing happened.
And thank you for saying my name because I forgot to. So we have a couple of announcements before we jump into calls, and we have a couple of announcements from our guest here as well. So most exciting thing to happen today-ish, because I'm sitting next to Mandisa, is that I get to announce that there will be a concert this Valentine's Day in Austin at the Chateau Bellevue with Shelley Seagal, Unplugged, all acoustic.
I love Shelley.
You're the expert, right?
I try.
And
How did these go together again?
with
I
a
feel like we
live
may have missed some
episode and appearance of Secular
Can we cover
Sexuality.
That's what we're here
before.
for. Every Thursday night at 7.
And immediately before a concert on Valentine's Day with Shelley Seagal. Tickets are on sale now, $30, and they're going to go really fast because we're going to do as much advertising and push that we can for it in the next couple of weeks. The venue is amazing. I haven't been there myself, but I've seen the tour online, which you're seeing now, and all the folks that did get a chance to tour it live are over the moon with the fact that we were able to find this on short notice. For those of you that don't recognize the name Shelley Seagal, this song that plays at the beginning of the Atheist Experience and the song that plays at the beginning of Godless Bitches and as many songs as we can get Shelley to write for us are written and performed by Shelley Seagal, the only performer I know to ever release an atheist album. So I'm excited to get to meet Shelley Seagal, much less see a concert by her. So if you're interested in tickets, you can find those online for $30. Get them now because they're going to run out. I need to announce that tomorrow, a very special episode of Godless Bitches will be coming out. They attended the Women's March here in Austin, and they've got plenty of fantastic footage available for that, and they're putting that together and putting an episode together and releasing it now instead of making you wait. So that's going to be very exciting as well. The magazine, the monthly magazine that the ACA produces, the January edition is out, and it is out in English and it is out in German. So we have gone bilingual, and you can find that online. You can become a member and get a subscription to it that way, or you can just get a subscription to it. You can email newsletter@atheist-community.org. I would also like to, I'll throw it over to Mandisa Thomas, who I think has a couple of conferences to tell us about.
Yes, thank you from one president to another. So thank you very much.
Introduce Mandisa Thomas, the founder and president of Black Nonbelievers.
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah. And I would also encourage you all to go see Shelley as someone who has not only seen her live, but has also coordinated events, appearances for her in the Atlanta area where I'm based. She is a wonderful person and a wonderful singer, so I do encourage you to purchase your tickets and see her live. Today, in addition to the calls that we will take, we will be also encouraging you to support Black Nonbelievers as an organization in our efforts. We are dedicated to fostering and building that community and providing support not exclusively for, but particularly for Black atheists who don't realize that there is a community, a whole secular community, and that there are efforts to bring more of us out and increase that visibility. We have quite a few events coming up this year. Two in particular. The first is the Women of Color Beyond Belief Conference that will take place in October in Chicago from October 4th through the 6th. It is the first ever conference of its kind that will feature all women of color speakers and organizers and leaders. And we encourage all of you to attend and listen and support and help build a network with us. The second is our third annual cruise convention, which is now titled BNCCon. And this will take place from November 10th through the 16th aboard the Carnival Horizon. I am pleased to announce that your very own Phil Session, who is a host of the Atheist Experience and the volunteer coordinator with Atheist Alliance, Atheists Helping the Homeless in Austin, and for FACT in San Antonio, he will be one of our speakers. So all of this information is available on our website at blacknonbelievers.org. I encourage you to not just support us in a way that is of course, not just to donate, but also to attend our events so that you can see us in person and get a good experience and a good glimpse into what we do. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And we will be encouraging you to not just support Black Nonbelievers, but also ACA and also their programs that they produce, because all of it is worthy of your support. So thank you very much.
Yeah. And thank you for that shout out. And thank you for woo! Mandisa Thomas and Phil Session, who's actually in the audience right now.
Yes, hey Phil,
right
we've been hanging out all weekend.
Yeah. Oh, wow. All right. I'm going to have to attend that, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, for a whole variety of reasons. Really, the ACA tries to foster that sense of sort of local community. So as often as I can, as often as you're in Austin, I'm going to try and ask you for tips, because that's what Black Nonbelievers has been doing for how many years is it now?
Now 8.
8 years.
Started in Atlanta, and I'm also pleased to announce that we are starting our 14th affiliate in the Richmond, Virginia area. So we are expanding as an organization as we encourage more people to get involved and participate, volunteer in a number of efforts, not just social, but also service and advocacy. And we are about increasing that visibility and actually doing the things. So I'm very, very happy that we've made so many connections and affiliations with many in this movement, and ACA included. So I just cannot thank you all enough for all the support.
Oh, you. What I will say is, it's an incredibly important thing, and it's something that the ACA has sort of doubled down and tried to learn how to do as best we can, as quickly as we can, because people, when they see you doing charitable work, still walk up and ask, oh, what church are you with? Rather than what group are you with, or what organization are you with, or, what are you doing here? Or what have you. So there's a couple of thank yous that need to be thrown out, as we always do. On Talk Heathen in the middle of the show throughout. We will be thanking our top patrons for their support, and I haven't finalized the list, so if you become a top patron in the next 45 minutes, you will be thanked on the air, on YouTube, for all perpetuity to see. Additionally, I'd like to thank Godless Cranium for appearing, I believe it was yesterday, on the ACA's Discord for a Q&A. That went well, and I'm glad he was able to help us out there. In the same way that I'm glad that Mandisa Thomas was able to grace us with her presence, and I mean that non-sarcastically. I sincerely mean that. Thank you.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It was a great opportunity. I spoke with the Free Thinkers Association of Central Texas yesterday.
Fact, yeah.
And because... yes, fact. That is a fact. And because Austin is only about an hour away, it just made that much more sense. So I appreciate being on the show. I mean, it's just a great opportunity, and to show the world and to let folks know about the different initiatives and efforts and organizations that are out there and the different things that we're doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thanks for stopping by. All right. I think that's all the announcements we have. And we are going to get to callers, starting with Rob from Long Island.
Hello.
Repeat caller. How you doing, Rob?
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Boone? Hi, Miss Thomas.
Yes. Yes. How are you?
Good, I'm fine. I haven't been on the show in a while. I remember, I think I seen you before, Miss Thomas, last time you were on the show.
Yes, you would have seen me on the Atheist Experience back in September. I think that was September 22nd. Correct.
Oh, yeah, you didn't appear on... I'm sorry. I also failed to announce that later today, Mandisa Thomas will be returning to the Atheist Experience as a guest.
Yeah, so you will be stuck with me all day.
And there we have a nice graphic on the screen. Yeah. So anyway, sorry, Rob. What did you want to talk about today?
The last time, we're still on two topics. We're still on why would I believe in and I'll drop it, put it in a different way, an imaginary God coming from an imaginary book, the Bible. But where we left off last time was Deuteronomy. And Eric was upset because in Deuteronomy there were penalties that the Lord put in the book about certain sexual acts, bestiality, sleeping with your mother, sleeping with your sister.
No, hold on. Sorry.
Yeah.
Let me just jump in there. Yeah, it's a man lies with these things because in the Bible women are treated as property. But two, it's if a man sleeps with a daughter and a mother. So it's like don't sleep with your mother-in-law. I don't know that it has a specific incest clause. It probably doesn't, since incest is an act. Does it? I think it does actually. But which is strange because many of the heroes of the Old Testament also slept with their families. But you seem to have left off when a man lies with a man, which I believe is Leviticus 20:19. But in any case, and for all these crimes, the punishment is death.
I'm not saying they're crimes.
God is saying they're crimes.
For what I've been given, they're warning labels. And
yes, if you do X, you will die.
It was bestiality. It was sleeping with your mother. It covers all sexualities that are not in our physiological makeup. If you
homosexuality is within our physiological makeup, Rob. I don't
want to touch gay because I just
the Bible does.
I know gay people. I know how it goes. The only thing I could say is, in your physiology, you can't have children.
I beg your pardon?
Sorry. A gay couple cannot bear a child. Is that correct?
Lesbians exist.
Correct.
Another thing the Bible leaves out repeatedly, probably because at the time women were property, so the idea that they would do anything that was displeasing to either their father, their father-in-law, or their husband was just not thought of because you could just kill them anyway because women were property in the same way that slaves were. But yeah, sure. If I marry another dude who doesn't have a uterus, then neither of us have a womb, then neither of us can give birth. There are infertile couples all the time.
Yes, being able to give birth and being able to have children really are two different things.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, there's that, and then there's also, I can raise a child pretty well. He's going to be a chess boxing champion.
You were pretty much, you were left out of the scene as far as children bearing, unless, that's it.
Yeah, it took human beings conquering nature to make this happen. Funnily enough, there wasn't a miracle by any god that made it happen. But
okay, so Rob, I'm sorry if I'm correct. You were trying to make the point of, you were being asked, why do you believe in an imaginary God coming from an imaginary book? And you were trying to make a point about all of these things. Mm-hmm. So what, can you elaborate further on that?
Yeah, we did sort of run roughshod earlier.
The imaginary God, the imaginary book create a better life for everybody. And I could go. I have to answer one question. Women were not considered properly.
They weren't considered properly. You are right about that.
Property is. Let me look.
Is what you meant.
I prayed on it. I think the problem with what has occurred here, why atheism has become more popular, is because people don't understand people anymore. And I would take it a step further, that people who don't understand people don't understand themselves.
Okay.
Once again, it's an identity crisis that is prevalent in the 20th century.
Let me just ask you to clarify. When you say atheism has become more popular because people do not understand people, what is it about? So presumably, are you just referring to people not accepting faith and people deconverting? Right. What is it about, in your words, not understanding people that would lead someone to, for example, leave the church?
Why would somebody leave the church? Because they don't understand people. If you don't feel comfortable within your own church, if you don't feel comfortable within your own family, you're going to find something. Why is it not making you comfortable?
So
then
to be clear, when
you look at the Bible, you look at God, and then you say, "Well, that must be it." But
Rob,
you don't understand people.
So, Rob, can I ask you a question? According to what you believe, the whole purpose is to understand your God. Is that not correct?
No, people.
You're supposed to understand people, but not God.
Excuse me? Sorry.
Isn't the point to understand God? Because according to what you believe, man is fallible. So therefore,
I think that's correct. But you have to understand people so you can understand God, because God is the authority of people, not the authority as in arresting and punishment. He knows us better than we know. But if you can't understand people, then you can't understand God.
Just to be clear, are you saying that God does not punish people?
No, I would say up until the end of the Old Testament, yeah, that ended. Jesus became Lord, and the world changed again.
So to be clear, is God eternal?
It's all about healing, not about destruction.
Okay, so to be clear, is God eternal?
Yes, correct.
Is God unchanging?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so a moment ago when you said the world changed because Jesus became Lord, presumably Jesus, being the same as God, has always been Jesus and has always been Lord and hasn't changed.
No, that's untrue.
Can you clarify?
He walked the earth as a man. He was just he was like the seed that comes out of your sack. One piece. He walked the earth, he experienced it, died for it, came back, and now he rules because he knows it better than the Father does. That's a dynasty of heaven.
So to be clear, are Jesus and God, the Father, different beings?
Yes, they are.
Okay. I just needed that clarified. So God, the Father, is responsible for all of the Old Testament
yes, that's correct.
crap.
Yes.
Where people are suffering and dying and he doesn't give a shit in this. So when people are suffering and dying now and God doesn't intervene, the God that is responsible is Jesus.
No, once again, you're putting everything on God and not understanding man.
But God is supposed to be all-powerful and all-knowing and all.
Okay.
So wouldn't the onus be on God for all of this clarification?
No, he's not. If he had to stop every crime, every thief, every murderer, everything that goes on, it would be a nonstop action because you don't understand man.
So
what
God,
you're doing is
God has looked at.
God is a scapegoat for man.
Yeah, it's not a scapegoat. If you claim to be the authority and the teacher and you're going to punish people with hell, then you're responsible if you have rules and tell people to follow them and enforce them in a specific way.
The interpretation of hell is the one you're using is a very generic brand
That's
used
true.
by churches to teach kids not to get in bad trouble, turn into, say, Butch Cassidy or John Dillinger. That is always been the stopgate of the church to prevent people from becoming real bad.
Okay, so
the difference between little bad and big bad, correct?
I feel like there's differences in the amount of bad. So to be clear, can you tell me what you believe about hell?
I don't discern it. I've heard a lot of stories about. I've heard people say, "Man, I wish I was sitting there watching that guy fry," I don't get into it. I believe there's in heaven. There also is, even though there's eternal love and everything that goes along with it, without a world of sin, there is some kind of caste system that makes it work out somehow. To say that we're all equal in heaven after life on earth with somebody that really hurt people in a lot of ways, no, I don't. But I don't discern it that much. I just don't believe in eternal fire forever and ever and ever. And there's a lot of popular, very learned people who study the Old Testament and the New Testament agree with that. That is a church fallacy, but it's put there once again. It's a label.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Rob.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? You said you don't believe with that, with that fallacy of the church. Do you think that that is a fallacy on behalf of God or on behalf of people?
People. They're not. Many people don't read the Bible, first of all.
Agreed.
You might have one on your. A lot of people might have one, and a lot of people don't even have them in their house.
Okay.
But once again, I'm going to stick to it. It's a stopgate to prevent people from becoming worse than they are. So, in a lot of cases, I was listening to a guy talk the other day. He got out of jail, and he's still copping an attitude. Like it doesn't work.
What?
You're right or you're wrong.
Okay, so to be clear, you believe that if a person is afraid of hell, this will stop them from sin?
Partially, yeah. I would say it works a little. I would say it works some, yeah. It depends. It's all in the teachers. It's all in the ministry. It's it goes on and on.
So
it's all in the home.
If God has given His message to mankind, which stop me if I say something that you don't believe, because I'm trying to meet you where you're at, but I wasn't gonna, grill you for 20 minutes about the specifics of your belief. I feel like that would be unfair. But again, stop me if I say, Jesus is an antelope, and you don't believe that. I'm assuming that you don't believe Jesus is an antelope, but to be clear, God has given, His word and guidance. Jesus has given His word and guidance to humanity. Jesus cares for the well-being of humans, and Jesus is maximally powerful.
I would say it's maximally powerful, but he doesn't use it because it's man's problem since the Garden of Eden. Since the fall of Eden, man has brought a lot of problems about himself.
Now we have something that I think might be an error in the way that you've described your theology, because I believe that you said that all of the Old Testament stuff was the responsibility of God the Father and not of Jesus. Is that correct?
Yeah.
The Garden of Eden, Old Testament, and then all the things that happened after that, including the Tower of Babel and all of the genocides that the God the Father commanded His people to commit. Those are instances of God the Father intervening in human affairs in a way that you say Jesus does not.
Yes, we can go there, but the interpretation you're implying is that the people that were conquered by war, and that's basically what was going on in the Middle East,
and then genocide.
God assisted because He felt they were a better people. What do you want from me? The term hell comes from a tribe in the Middle East that used to sacrifice children to a pagan god.
Okay, but doesn't hell exist?
So what we're talking about is God choosing a specific people that He would watch and listen to and said, well, they're better. I'll support them. Is there anything wrong with that?
Yes.
If you don't understand man, then you can't understand God.
No. If your goal is, wow, all of the humans are my children and I love them all, then picking this favorite and saying, hello, my favorite people, go next door and kill every man, woman, and child that lives over there because I don't like them anymore, then yes, there is something wrong with that.
No, you're telling the story wrong. Pretty much the story is, in that time, in that area of the world, it was kill or be killed. You're misinterpreting.
Is God powerful enough to stop humans from killing each other? if he wanted to.
No, we were born with, we've always had freedom
If
of
God
choice.
wanted to, well, except when God intervenes, which he does in the Old Testament, but if God wanted to stop one person from murdering another, could he?
He wouldn't. It wouldn't
Yes,
fix
but
it.
could he?
That's a yes or no answer, Rob.
So
You can't have a yes or no answer. You can't have it because it's a no. It's like saying a no.
no. So am I more powerful than God? Yes or no?
You?
Yes.
You have freedom of choice, but
Yes, but if God decided, you know what, I'm going to kill Jamie right now, could he?
He wouldn't. That's
I
not
know
the
that he
point.
wouldn't, Rob. That's not the question I
Could he?
asked.
Yes,
Was
he
is he
probably
strong enough?
could. Just
Right, like I am strong enough to flip this table, but that doesn't mean I'm going to flip it right now.
I don't know what to say about that question.
Answer it honestly.
No, he wouldn't. He just
All
wouldn't.
right. Thank you.
That's like saying a good man would kill somebody. If you look at the book of the New Testament, he was a good man. He wasn't going about killing people. You're asking if a good man would kill somebody.
Who
I have to
was?
say no.
Who was?
Jesus was a good man.
Yes, but earlier in this call, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that God the Father and Jesus the Son were different people.
Correct.
Okay,
Different gods.
so different gods. So when I'm describing atrocities ordered by God the Father in the Old Testament, and you say, but Jesus was good, you're describing a different person. So if I'm going to say God the Father in the Old Testament is responsible for the genocide that he instructed his people to commit, and you say, but Jesus said, dance in flowers and be nice to each other, you have not answered the objection I have raised. The objection I've raised is, in the Old Testament, God the Father instructs his chosen people to commit genocide.
There's a few instances. I remember at the
yes.
When he came down. All right, when he came down with the tablets, correct? But you didn't have the information on that either. The people that were worshiping the idol were planning to kill Moses.
Okay,
you're assuming
that has nothing to do with the genocide. Look, in the Old Testament of this book, God says to his people, go kill all the, I've been reading the Book of Mormon, so I was about to say Lamanites, but that's the wrong people. Go kill all the Amalekites. Thank you. Go kill all the Amalekites and their children, and except for the young virgins that you keep for yourselves, and all of their animals and their plants so that nothing will grow there. It's very much go kill all of those people, all of them, wipe them out. That's something that God commands. So the fact that, he protected Moses from an uprising isn't related to that act of ordering genocide.
I have a modern day comeback where I'm trying to explain what the Middle East was like back then.
Okay, the Middle East back then was very clearly directly under the heel of Yahweh God.
I'm going to give you a modern day example of a tribe, and I can't remember, I don't know exactly where this island is. If you just go, they're so secluded, no electronics. If you go there by boat and walk on that island, they will kill you instantly. And
South Sentinel Island.
Yes, I remember
South Sentinel Island.
Now you're getting now we're getting down to what true tribalism was thousands of years ago.
Why didn't God change that?
Why
didn't God change that? Why did God play into real tribalism and say, God as I'm worshipped now is a tribal God and is giving tribal instructions, almost as if he was man-made rather than the other way around, instead of saying, actually, you know what? You guys shouldn't be separate tribes. I shouldn't take a side in this. I should tell both sides not to commit atrocities like genocide and not to commit not to go to war over things that I could provide. If I was God, I wouldn't leave people hungry to fight over food. Right. I would feed them and tell them to be nice to each other.
Right, and then
why didn't your God do that?
How do you know that?
You don't understand people enough. You blame God for everything. You want miracles all the time.
Christians pray for miracles all the time.
And also talking about the God that was on the people that were on the island, the guy who was killed was trying to spread his message of his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, even though he had been warned repeatedly not to go there. I mean, the people on that island repeatedly He was attacked for trying to come to that island at least twice before he was actually killed. So who are you to say that perhaps it wasn't the same God that was telling those people, hey, kill this guy because he is trying to attack you?
So now you're saying there's a God that tells people to kill people?
Hey, Jamie just said God commanded the genocide of men, women, and children.
The Amalekites.
That is what the God of the Christian Bible has done.
I think you misinterpret self-defense.
No, I don't, because self-defense isn't what we're talking about. We're talking about a God that said, go kill those people.
Correct.
That's not self-defense. Additionally, if God can appear to the ancient Israelites and say, follow my instructions and persuade them, was God too weak to appear to the ancient Amalekites?
He had to start somewhere, and I guess it was. We do know it was with Adam and Eve. You're trying. You have the best that there is, and you try to take that. I don't know what to tell you.
So what you're saying is God couldn't do better.
Right.
God settled, is what you're saying.
God just threw up his hands and said, forget it.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. He accomplished, and what we're talking about is
he accomplished genocide.
Also.
Is what we're talking about.
He taught the people how to protect themselves.
He taught the people how to commit genocide.
All right, listen. You refuse to believe the fact that people are people and there's a duality of nature.
You refuse to acknowledge that the God of the Old Testament commanded genocide.
He taught them how to defend themselves.
No, he told them to commit genocide.
I'm telling you. You couldn't walk.
If he'd said, hey, build fortifications, here's some weapons, never use them offensively, but your weapons are more powerful, that would have been a more effective, less genocide way of defending yourself. Why is it that I'm smarter than the God of the Old Testament?
You're not.
Really? Because I just thought of a way of instructing ancient people
to not go out and to protect themselves without having to kill a whole bunch of people.
You can't figure out what genocide is. Do you know what genocide is, Rob?
Yeah, Hitler did it. All the leaders, all the communist leaders.
Great.
We know what genocide is. We know what a world is without religion. That we know.
Oh, my God.
We know what godless men are like. To be clear, you're right, as this is all made up and everyone gets to say that they're the real fans of this book. But if you're going to try and tell me that Hitler, among others, didn't say, I'm doing this, it's our duty to our creator to wipe out the Jews, then we're going to have a real problem with the historical record. But in any case, I don't have a problem with you saying, Hitler was wrong about God, because that's a very easy apologetic to say. But I get told, Hitler was an avowed atheist, and he said he was an atheist far too many times. There's no
He identified as Catholic.
Yeah.
Anybody can identify themselves with any religion because of their activities.
I just wanted
politics go.
I just wanted to make sure that we were.
Once again, you don't understand man. You're sitting there saying Hitler was really a believer in God, but how do you know he lied about everything else? Why can't you lie about what he believes in?
To be clear, he didn't lie about what he wanted to do when he was in power. And he didn't lie to his generals.
For a long time. Believe me, it wasn't like
he was honest. He was honest about how he hated the Jews.
So you know more about Hitler's understanding, but you don't understand why God just threw up his hands. Is that what you're saying, Rob?
I know why God threw up his hands. First of all, why? You got to ask yourself, why did God create his son, and why did his son eventually become the God of heavens over earth?
Because that's the way the early Christians, when they fought wars over whose version of the story that was a continuation of an ancient story, decided that the story was going to go. Because the early proto-Orthodox Christians defeated the Marians, I think they're. I've probably butchered the name.
There's lots of stories, but once again, creating
and the one that was
being given on God's shoulders. That's all it is. You have to understand man to understand God. Why he says
yes, you do. You have to understand that men create gods.
Bad.
Yeah, things are bad. You've said that. Oh no. If Jesus in the modern day, we'll go back to the modern day because for whatever reason you refuse to admit that genocide exists. and was instructed by God in the Bible.
I said it existed in
Yeah, you've claimed multiple times that genocide is self-defense.
Genocide, people.
Yeah. Congratulations.
So where are we going with
So did the God of the Old Testament.
You're calling it genocide. I'm
Yes,
calling it
because he
war.
said,
It
"Go
is
forth and kill
genocide.
all of the people." That's what genocide is.
No, that's not genocide.
That's
war.
genocide.
You kill your own people. That's genocide.
What? Wait a minute.
Okay.
Whoa.
Oh my God.
Do we need to go to the
If you-
textbook definition of genocide?
All right.
here?
If your problem is with the specific word genocide, then we'll
Yes,
do
it is a
pogrom.
problem.
All right. He committed a pogrom successfully against the Amalekites. Is
Right,
that
correct.
morally acceptable?
It says, according
I
to.
would say the Amalekites at that time would have been a real problem for anybody. We're going back to the same.
Oh
island
my God.
thing. You couldn't go there. You
so to be
couldn't
clear,
use their
it was
water.
justified for for God to instruct his people to go kill all of this particular tribe of God's children. Was that action justified?
Not aware of it. You know,
It's the one we've been talking about this whole time, where the ancient Israelites in
you're
the
talking
book.
about one specific text, like what was
Yeah,
going
I'm
on
talking
there.
about one very specific example, and I'm asking you the very specific question: is that morally acceptable?
If it was in self-defense, yes.
All right, it wasn't.
How do you know? It doesn't say anything. It just
The
gives
book
a few lines.
right
It's-
here
Conventions
does
and
not
names.
describe self-defense. It describes the complete annihilation of a group of people based on their culture and heritage. Is that
That's
a
what
morally
it says.
acceptable thing?
You have no other evidence. You have two lines.
Well,
I'm
to be
giving
very
you a
clear, the
self-defense.
evidence shows that most of the things written about in the Old Testament didn't happen. However, my understanding is that your belief is that the Old Testament in this book describes the nature of God the Father. Am I wrong in believing that the Old Testament of this book describes the actions and nature of God the Father?
As the protector, yes. As
All right,
the protector.
fantastic.
God the Father is
In
the
this
protector.
book that you've just said describes the nature and actions of God the Father instructs his people to go forth and kill all the Amalekites. Was that something that is morally acceptable?
I don't know. I'd have to look up and find out what the Amalekites were like. I believe it was self-protection.
Wow.
Self-protection.
If-
Just like in the world we live in today,
Oh my God.
self-protection exists on many levels.
You know, I have a deep passion for current affairs and politics, and I thought I was a cynic. But apparently, I'm not, because, wow, all right, I'm a
not
little
cynic.
taken aback.
I try not to pay attention to politics. I really don't. It's,
It shows.
I knew somebody very personally. It probably drove them out of their mind watching that every day.
Well,
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
It can be very disturbing to watch current affairs.
well, Rob, I will just
Yes,
say
of course.
that I think
If you can't have compassion in your life for the people that are needy, yes.
you are
then you
absolutely
shouldn't be-
correct.
But if you don't have compassion for people that people need protection at the same time, you don't understand man or woman. We keep using the word man.
Well, it's
man and
interesting
woman. I think there's a
Hold on.
misconception about what your understanding of what woman is too. She's not a slave. not
I
property.
agree. Let me make that very clear.
Okay.
No human is property, rightly
should
called.
be, right.
Or should be rightly called property, regardless of whether or not they are a woman. So I can agree with you on that point.
Yeah. But the way you interpret the Bible, you miss so many. You know less than you say. You read it and you take it as text, but you don't have any underlying theme that makes it. You have no knowledge of the
But
underlying.
if this is
theme
God's
behind it.
infallible and perfect word, then how can Jamie just reading those words be interpreted in any way than other than what they're supposed to be said and other than what's said?
Like life, Jamie doesn't understand people well enough. That's
So,
it.
to be clear, I don't understand
That's the
people well
basis
enough.
of-
Therefore,
Yes.
God's perfect word doesn't work.
Hey,
Oh,
Is this
because you
the-
don't understand something? If you don't
Fantastic.
understand yourself,
Why is God bad at
then it's
explaining
God's
things?
fault. He does. It depends if you listen. Just say you have a thought, and you ignore that thought. What's he supposed to do? Hit you with a stick? You're ignoring your own
Like,
thoughts.
let's
if somebody
let's
tells-
say that
I talk to you now.
Let's say I have a thought and I listen to the thought and the thought is bad. And then someone says that thought is bad and I say, no, you were wrong about it. Let's say that I read a book with plain text and I say, wow, the book says what this plain text is. And someone says, no, you're wrong about that because you don't understand because. Where am I supposed to go from there, Rob?
If you don't know right from wrong from now, then
no, I mean that.
So let's go to the story of Abraham, where God commanded him to kill his son as a test of loyalty. Was Abraham hearing voices, or was he following? Did he really understand what God told him to do, or was telling him to do?
Because of today's society, with so many people having mental illnesses, that's a difficult. You use that subject, but it's because of present day society.
But we're not talking about present day. This was back in the biblical times.
Nobody can handle that now because society has too many social problems. We can't use that. All we can say is he didn't kill him. God stopped him. It was a test.
So to be clear,
wait.
It was the word of God.
Talk about the two brothers. Here we are again, understanding people. One brother offers something better to God. The other brother doesn't. What's happened? Instead of the other brother killed. That Cain killed Abel. Why? Jealousy. Now you got to understand man a little better.
Yeah, I also understand that God didn't stop that.
Like I said, if God had to hold everybody's hand back, control everybody's mind, we'd be a bunch free will.
He would be doing lots of work. Oh no, boo-hoo.
He would have to take some responsibility.
He would have to take responsibility.
If people have to take responsibility, so should God.
I believe because we're looking at the coming again, and he is taking responsibility. If you
really,
actually, no, he isn't.
Yeah. To be clear, when you say taking responsibility, Rob, hold on. One question. Yeah. When you say he is taking responsibility, do you mean that right now God is taking actions to mitigate atrocities? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. It could be worse.
Which ones?
Or even though we have a war, I think it's the longest unofficial war that's been going on in history in the Middle East. The wars have gotten smaller. God has his hand in politics.
But then why aren't they just disappearing altogether?
Yeah.
Why is it? Yeah.
Because, I mean, in my mind, the UN peacekeeping force is doing a bang-up job and God is absent. What are you talking about here? In what way is God intervening?
Why?
I should say.
The question you have to ask yourself: why? And when he comes, he'll have the answer. But why did it take thousands of years since his second coming? Why? There's a reason. It's not just
because it's a legend and not the truth.
People are being punished. They got to, they deserve what they get. No, there's a real reason why the third coming.
Well, we'd like to really know what that reason is.
Yeah.
That's
why is God waiting?
Discernment.
Do you know why God is waiting?
Off the top of my head, when he, from what I've heard and what I've read,
like everything is off the top of your head.
He's still not going to be recognized. It's going to take a couple hundred years for the world, and he's not coming as a ruler. He's bringing back something from the Garden of Eden, whatever, that is going to return us to a state of non-sin, whatever you want to compare that to. But yeah, there's a reason. It's a down-to-earth reason. It's not punishment. It's something that couldn't happen in the past. It has to happen now. Communication. What if the Lord came?
So when Jesus came the first time, why did he not leave instructions for the creation of the internet?
Because we would not even know what he was talking about. That's a big thing.
Is God a teacher?
Yeah.
Okay. Why is he incapable? Is God capable of teaching human beings how to use technology?
Yeah, he did.
Okay,
That's
so
how we got this far in 2,000 years.
Yeah, so what you're saying is it took 2,000 years. It took the Dark Ages of Europe, the Inquisition, basically human events unfolding in the way that you would expect human events to unfold if humans were not aided by a divine being. that needed to happen for 2,000 years before now he can start to prepare to come back?
Yes. What do you want me to say?
That's the clearest yes we've heard you say so far, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Let's say if he was here 300 years ago, no telephones, no way of communicating.
What does God need with a telephone?
Right.
Because how are people going to talk to people? What if somebody met God and
Why can't God appear in more? Okay, is God capable of appearing in more places than just Jerusalem?
Yes, but I don't think.
So if God wanted to, and he said, you know what, I'm going to come down, I'm going to appear in Moscow first, and I'll teach there for a week, a month, 3 days. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to appear in Berlin for 3 days and teach there for a week, a month, 3 days. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to appear in Johannesburg and then, in South America, in North America, wherever. Is God capable of doing that?
I say yeah, but I have to counter with a question. Is he going to return in the flesh? If he returns in the flesh, you have to deal with him in the flesh like you did.
All right.
Like
So let's say he doesn't return in the flesh. Let's say he returns in one of those places, and to all of those other places, he sends the angel Gabriel and the archangel.
You wouldn't be able to handle it.
We wouldn't be able to. You can't handle the truth of God, apparently.
That's pretty much it. You would not be able to handle it. If an angel appeared in front of in Moscow, in front of the
But we're not talking about angels. We're talking about God.
Clinton, you wouldn't be able to handle it. It's just too much for the mind to handle. That's all
So now, who's the one who doesn't understand people? If you're all outright saying that we wouldn't be able to handle God's appearance, who's the one that doesn't understand people?
People, you don't understand people. You're saying you could handle it. I'm saying you couldn't.
You are.
No, you're the one who's saying. You're the one who's saying that people.
Breakdown. He would.
I'm sorry.
If all of a sudden a heavenly body appeared in Moscow in front of all of them, they'd have nervous breakdowns. They would be. They wouldn't be able to handle it. And then they would misinterpret it.
Actually,
if you ever. Yeah, it would be like that.
There's a heavy religious and conservative presence in the Russian Federation with the presence of the Orthodox Church, right? Like, they're not going to be mystified by the appearance of Jesus.
Yes, they would be. You could, even when, the atheist community denies modern day miracles, as it is. Anybody comes up with a miracle, you counter. So it shows quite bluntly.
No, if someone comes up with and says that X is a miracle, and I say, show me the miracle, and it turns out that they don't have sufficient reason to believe that it's a miracle, and I say, I don't have sufficient reason to believe that it's a miracle, and they get butthurt. That tends to be what happens.
But that's the same thing that would happen if the Lord... So
what you're saying is God isn't... Is God capable of appearing to people such that they know it is God?
They wouldn't be able to handle it. Nope, they would interpret.
Is God powerful enough to compel, in a persuasive way, to persuade people that he is God?
Yes, but I think he's coming.
So why doesn't he do that? He's going to appear in the flesh.
Well,
so why didn't he do that already?
People can't handle it.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. That's not, that's man. Man cannot handle a lot of things.
Yeah, but you've just said that God can appear to people such that they will understand that it is God.
That's correct.
God did that before without the context of most people, or a large number of people on earth already believing he was real, right? That's the story. He showed up and no one had heard of him before, and then he was there, and he was a big hit. He was bigger than the Beatles, whatever, and then he disappeared for a couple thousand years, and now you're saying, oh, everyone is waiting for the comeback tour. It's going to be a world tour, but no, he's too shy to appear on stage? What is this? Why doesn't he show up?
Timing is everything.
Timing is everything. So is he waiting for something specifically? A red cow, perhaps?
Yeah, I would say the world to get to the point where it would be able to accept him, it would be able to accept what he has to offer to bring back once was before the fall of Eden. The world has to be ready for it.
Okay, so what does a world that is ready for Jesus look like?
A desperate one. One where families can't unite, high drug addictions, suicide,
And that means the world's ready for him now, supposedly. My goodness.
To be clear.
That's a phenomenon now. This is what the current social situation, with the divorce rate, abortion,
gotta watch out for those divorces. So to be clear,
it wasn't before.
So to be clear, in the Middle Ages, when 1/3 of the population of Europe died from
the bubonic
plague, that wasn't a desperate population of humanity.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm not.
I think that's true.
Go there. You know how you go there. You know what overpopulation is, and it sounds sick to say.
Please don't tell me that was necessary.
Yes, you put it on the table. What are you going to do?
What am I going to do? Create a more sustainable Earth that can maintain a population.
No, it was a disease. He didn't bring it on.
I'm sorry. Can anything happen that your God chooses not to allow? Is there a force more powerful than God?
No.
Okay, so if God wanted there to not be a bubonic plague, he could make there not be a bubonic plague. You can tell me he wouldn't, and you can tell me he didn't, because very clearly he didn't. But if he had wanted to, could he have done that?
I don't know. I'll tell you, I don't know.
Okay.
And then, you know what?
What we're assuming
it's okay to say you don't know, because guess what? That is what many atheists also say.
Yeah.
That we don't know. So we tend to understand more people more than you think.
Yeah.
Do you realize how we finally figured out what transferred the plague? Maybe God gave us the ability to understand it was done by rats. You want instantaneous fix of everything.
God sent the plague of rats for the bubonic plague?
Yes,
here's the thing.
plague was brought on by rats.
I'm told
it was brought on by poor sanitation and poor living conditions, which if there was a God that could have instructed the people in Europe and London to better improve on their sanitation system, then perhaps the bubonic plague would not have occurred.
Yeah.
That
and there was a pope that said that.
Now you're telling that God should teach people how to clean their houses.
That's correct.
That
is correct.
If there's a God that has all knowledge and all power and can inspire people with knowledge, and he cares about human beings, maybe passing on germ theory of disease would be a good place to start.
Right.
And it did. Eventually it did.
All right. You know what? When I turned in homework late in school, I still got an F. Jesus gets an F.
Yes.
I don't think so. I think you're asking for everything so quick that
I'm promised everything so quick when Christians come forth and say, "Oh, look, this book describes the nature of God, and in it says it's either 2 or 3 people that gather in my name and pray for something shall not be denied it." And they say, "Oh, and God is all powerful, and God is all knowing, and God can help everything," and yet people still get raped, and genocide still happens, and disease still spreads, and hurricanes still destroy things. So forgive me for saying, you know what? These two things don't add up.
I'm sorry you have that interpretation. It's not nothing I can help you overcome because you.
1 Peter 3:15. Give me a reason for the joy that you have found.
Yeah, that's it. I found joy. A lot of people have found joy. We want you to find joy.
Yep. I would say
you depressed.
Here's what I'll say.
See you misled.
And I'm glad for that. And I do not want to see you depressed or you misled. And so I think that perhaps either again next week or the week after, I would like to continue this conversation. And I know that Eric would love to be in on this call and future
there was something I needed to tell him, but I had to.
He's right on the other side of the glass.
Audience.
He's in the audience.
Hey. Enough time. I appreciate you let me talk and I listen to you guys sincerely.
Yeah, and thank you for I get a little bit worked up when people tell me that there's good reasons for genocide. So I'm sorry if I came across a bit harsh.
It's not genocide.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
It.
Bye,
All right.
Rob.
Thank you, Rob, for calling in, and I hope to talk to you again.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, well.
Ooh, that was fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that was a good first call. Yep.
Eric is giving us both a thumbs up. This is
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yep. Yep.
You know, just this idea of, well, we're becoming more godless because we don't understand people, but that's exactly the point.
Yeah, I know. And I didn't circle back around to, I'm sorry, you're saying that now families and humanity is worse off, and now humanity is more desperate. 1/3 of humanity has access to the internet. Indoor plumbing exists. I'm sorry, when all of the world, all of humanity lived in what we would consider dire poverty by today's standards, humanity was more desperate. Mm-hmm. Whatever. It's weird to pick only one of the things that he said that was that ridiculous and go over it. But
It was constant. It was consistent contradictions as well. So that was very, very interesting. But
yeah.
wow.
Well, I think consistent contradictions is called religious indoctrination.
And
but
it's definitely called the Bible too,
yeah,
right?
relatively consistent. All right. Let's take our good friend Frode.
Hi.
Hey,
Hello.
how are you doing?
How do you follow that?
As best we can, with as much sincerity and joy.
I hope Rob is listening. He reminds me so much of my dad. It is crazy. It's just he reminds me so much of my dad. I hear the same arguments, and funny enough, my dad is listening. So hello, Dad. And I got
Hi, Fruit's dad.
Yes, hello, Thor. I got a message from my dad during this call, and he said, "Oh my God." Well, he didn't use "Oh my God," but because my dad is Christian.
Gosh.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my gosh, this man is making so much sense.
Rob was making much sense?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. Sorry, Dad.
Mm-hmm.
If my head actually hits the microphone, Vern will be mad.
Anyway.
Dad, I'm sorry. He really wasn't making much sense at all.
My dad bought the argument.
I mean, I as a favor to you, I will not directly encourage your father to call, but our lines are open.
Do you know
he should email.
I have asked him so many times to call in. So
well, if he doesn't want it to be like a thing that's, public, if he doesn't want to read 1 Peter 3:15 and try and proselytize as effectively as possible for the Lord, he can still send us an email, mail@talkheathen.com.
Anyways, that's not what I really want to talk
What I was
about.
going to say is actually really quick. Mandisa, I think, has watched some past episodes, but might not be entirely familiar with, sort of the process that you have gone through with Eric and I. And I was thinking, oh, okay, I'll fill her in. But you're here and on the line. Do you want to give her just sort of a brief backstory of the progress you've made?
Short recap.
Yeah. Last week on Frode.
I've been through a lot. The two first calls I had into Talk Heathen, I was a hardcore believer.
The first two?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
I called in here. I was a hardcore believer. I was so indoctrinated into my belief that I actually prayed every time I lost a spoon or a knife.
Oh, wow.
So just Jamie and the people around him, Eric, has helped me tremendously. Looking through the facts and getting through my atheist experience has been some of the hardest weeks of my life that I would do it 10,000 million times again. It's not been easy, but it's worth it, funny enough.
Congratulations, because that is, it really isn't an easy thing, especially when you are a very hardcore believer and you believe in this stuff to, to your core. And then when you see others that are directly challenging those beliefs, it can be a very scary experience as a believer. But, it must have taken something in you to question and reconsider, and that takes courage. So you ought to be you should be commended for that and continuing to call into the show and engage.
Thank you. No, I think one of my biggest surprises has been the feedback I have gotten from people and all the nice people I have met.
How about that? Good.
Are you sure they weren't all angry atheists being mean and trying to take
Right.
people's joy away?
No, I met like Chelsea, and Nick, and Eric, and Chris, and there's so many names.
Remember, we don't understand
What
people.
about me? No, yeah. I mean, we don't understand people or that they need community or love and affection. So,
but it's been an outreach of love that I have never experienced before.
oh,
Awesome.
And that's one of the things that I want to talk to. That was the reason why I called in, because I want to talk a little about what do you fill your life with when God is gone?
Okay. You want to answer that, Jamie? Or
so what I can say is that for me, when I believed, God was a source of strength, but oftentimes I just sort of felt compelled to help other people, and to care for my family, try and do well, try and be successful in the way that my parents wanted me to be. Hi, Mom and Dad, if you're both listening. And so when I lost God, there wasn't sort of that pillar to lean on of like, oh, well, of course I do this because God, right? Or, oh, well, of course I'm going to do this. I pray and, right? So it was sort of a source of strength and confidence for me. And that took a hit, right? When I stopped believing, I realized, it was mostly an 11-day process. There were little bits in the years leading up to that. But mostly I very quickly realized, no, there's no reason to believe that this is the case. And then I had to ask myself the question, so in the past, when I was leaning on a pillar of strength and confidence, what the fuck was that? And the answer was, that was me, right? So I'd been telling myself I could only fly when I had this feather. But when the feather was gone, I could still fly, which meant I never needed it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very, very, very difficult thing to sort of deprogram in your brain. But Frode, you've gotten as far as you have in life and accomplished the things that you have and overcome the struggles that you have because you're you and you're strong.
Right.
And so
that's one of the things that's maybe the hardest thing for me to understand, because when you have believed in a lie, is it the lie that has helped you, or is it really yourself? And that's one of the hardest things I have struggled with, is now that I am without the lie, now that I am without a God, I don't see inside of me the same force as I did before, and I think I tried to explain it like this before today. It's a little like the light in my apartment has been turned off, and I don't have a power into the power switch, so I can't get the light on again. And it's finding that power source that has been so tremendously hard, because there's nothing out there out of myself that can fill it. Before I had before I had God as my power source. Now I feel like I don't have anything to fill that power source to turn on the light again.
Actually, you have, like Jamie said, you have yourself, but you also have life as your power source. When a light bulb goes out, what do? We replace it with another one, and you can replace it with a better light, which is that life, the people around us. What are some of the other activities that you enjoy in your life outside of going to church? What are just some of the things? What are some of your interests? Can you tell us that?
Yeah, well, that was one of my main problems. I don't have a normal job. I don't have a normal job that I go to. So I used a lot of my time inside the church. I volunteered a heck much of time into the church. I think I was there Monday to Friday, from like 10 to 4 every day, doing something. And I don't have much money. My English is so. I talked a little to Eric about volunteering today, of course, but I want to be used for something that isn't in the name of religion, and I find it hard to find, especially when it's such a low production here in Norway of things to do.
So when you say it's a low production of things to do in Norway, do you mean that the place where you live, most of the activity revolves around things in the church?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Actually, I don't know what the specific sort of population of your local community is, but this idea may fall entirely flat. But for me, it's imagine a change you want to see in the world or an improvement that you want to make, and pursue that. Right? Like that's why I'm here. That's why I'm volunteering and a boatload of my time here. And if it's a good cause, you'll find other people that agree.
And if you don't see that there is something a need that is being filled, then you can create it. You know, I think many believers and many people in society have been taught this notion that, like you said, without a God, then there is nothing, that we as human beings don't have the power to create something better for the world, which is just simply untrue. And even if most of the activities center around the church, if there's a library in your area, hopefully there is something that that doesn't revolve itself around a church that you can get involved in somewhat. And also, you spend a lot of time always, dedicating something that revolves around other people, but not yourself. So you have been robbed of the ability to care for yourself more. And when we do that, when we do not rejuvenate ourselves and give ourselves that time and that space to do what we care for and something that is of our own interests, then that really you're really hurting yourself, if that makes sense. So if there is something that you've always been interested in, like if you had a hobby that didn't revolve around the church, you can take more time to indulge in that, until you can find much more of something else that revolves around helping other people. Now is the time to really rediscover yourself. And it's okay to take that time to do that, because that experience has been traumatic. And then you also still have people in your life that are you said your dad, he's very much a believer. He is very much in line with Rob, the previous caller. So that's challenging in itself. So really there's going to be that time and space that you need to really, really reflect and take better care of yourself, your mental health, most of all.
Yeah, no, that's what I think I've learned through this process. I do volunteer for the library for the blind and visually impaired people.
Good.
I do all of their artwork for their website and things like that. I am a graphic designer by
So
work.
it sounds like you're sort of into comic books as well. I was going to ask that. Are you a comic book enthusiast or something like that?
Not really. I'm not in.
Which is okay. I mean, it's totally fine.
Because I was going to say, well, boom, you have a million nerds online to talk to. And
Right.
there's going to be at least one convention in Norway where people dress up, and you've got activities and forums to argue about, if, Thor is holding Mjolnir, which can't be wielded directly by, the Hulk. Can the Hulk pick up Thor? Because then he's wielded and you'll get answers yes and answers no. And to be quite honest, you can go back and forth on that to the same degree that you can go back and forth on how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. Except one of those two fan fictions is much better written.
That is one of the things that has surprised me in Norway, especially, is how good Christian people are organized and how awful the atheist community in Norway is. It's not only here in Lillehammer where I live, but it's generally, if you don't live in a big town as Oslo, the capital of Norway, there is not really any organizations. The church life here in Lillehammer, this is no joke. There is 5 churches that are better organized than the atheists.
Well, you have to understand they've also had more of a head start. They also have more, finances. They have more support. So, maybe the atheists and secular organizations really do need your support now.
Yeah. Also, I didn't realize you lived in, I've always pronounced it Lillehammer, which is almost certainly incorrect, but that's cool. Because I know that I know where you're talking about. I've not been yet, but I will. So So what I will say is, do you know of organizations in Oslo?
In Oslo, yeah, but that's 3 hours from here.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is, here we'll get in touch and talk offline, because I also have an idea for, right. I'm about to start learning a second language. I don't know whether you've ever done that, but I know for myself that I'm not going to be able to follow through with it unless there's other people learning as well. So, if you have any interest in learning a second language, also let me know. But I can get in touch, or you can get in touch with the group in Oslo and try and coordinate something, and then they can put together, you can put together a little Lillehammer sort of event or gathering, throw it up on Facebook, and people will know that they can go there. And it's difficult to get things off the ground, particularly if you're working alone.
Right.
So
and even
don't
if
work
you
alone.
make that 3-hour trip one time, you never know how life-changing it could be.
Yeah.
So the first step is to, the first thing to do is to take that first step and actually just do it.
Right. And I think it's funny that people are calling you out on chat that I'm speaking a second language when I'm speaking English, and that is kind of true, because I also speak Norwegian, of course.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, I know that you speak 2 languages. I'm not sure whether you want to learn another one. Because I wasn't planning on learning Norwegian, although I could probably use a tutor. So.
But I was also talking on a more general term. I don't want this show to be about just me, but it's also like how as a nearly atheist do you fill your life up with things to do? And I think you come with some good ideas. Volunteering is important. Getting a new hobby is important. That is definitely things I'm looking into. Talking to people that has the same problems as me is being important.
I mean, I like going to the movies. We like going, and there are certain, certain TV shows we like, certain books we like. There are a lot of things that you can organize around that people wouldn't think that would just be considered everyday activities, but you can do them with more like-minded individuals. And you start finding your purpose there in the things that we would take for granted. Whether it is going to like a certain, like an event or a concert or something like that. Those are things that, you know, the type of music that we like. Music is often considered, and I agree, it is the universal language. So finding certain songs, you know, whether they are instrumental or they have words to them, often speak to our life experiences. And so even in that, you know, being able to utilize those things that we may not have thought provided meaning in our lives, it is there's a world of possibilities in them, and it doesn't cost that much. You know, whether you are volunteering or, like I said before, doing something that you enjoy just for yourself. So
it is true that Norway is largely atheist, but the strange thing is the organization around it. It's the
largely
organization.
atheist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to find something that fills my time, because I have used maybe the 4 last weeks going around myself because I can't go to my church and volunteer there because, well, I don't want to go there, and I'm not sure I would be welcome back anyway. But it's filling your life with something that isn't God is hard when you're 39 years old and on
That's what you've done,
on bare ground. It's building your house from absolutely nothing with
Mm-hmm. Which is scary for a lot of people. It is scary to think that at a certain age you have to start over.
Yeah.
But there are times when, you know, when you started on your journey to atheism, that's exactly what you did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to get comfortable with the idea of starting from zero and then rebuilding.
Started from the bottom.
Now we're here.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Well, keep calling in. Keep us informed, Frode. I'm trying. But yeah, I think we're gonna get to the next caller because we've got some good ones in the queue.
Yeah. Thank you. It was great talking to you.
Yeah. Good to hear from you, and good luck in your endeavors.
Thank you.
All right. See, that was good. That was a good. Ooh, how do you follow that call? Well, I didn't know how, but that worked pretty well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes.
There it is. Yeah. There it is. All right, let's take EF. EF, you're on with Jamie and Mandisa. And I believe your question is similar to Frode's, which is what do we believe replaces a god?
Yeah, let me just explain the question. I'm coming from Christian theism, and Christian theism starts from the position, for example, in the Book of Acts, it says, "God who made the world and everything in it is Lord of heaven and earth." And I'll just read one more, just so I can clarify the metaphysical point of this. In Colossians, it says, "For by him all things were created, both in heavens and earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions. All things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things." And here's the key passage. "And in him, God, all things hold together." Now, from a metaphysical point of view, God could be defined as that which is unconditionally non-dependent. Okay? Would you accept that definition, that God is that which is unconditionally non-dependent?
If you're talking about what you believe exists and that you call a god, then I would have to say I have, a basic understanding of what you believe a god is.
Yeah, if God is eternal and the creator of all things, then by definition, he would be unconditionally non-dependent, right? So,
well, that kind of depends, because I don't have a sufficient understanding of the cosmology to know whether that makes sense in a world where time is not also eternal. So
I'm just talking by definition.
Yeah, I'm not sure that definition makes sense because I don't have a sufficient knowledge of cosmology. But if you're trying to say uncaused, then sure.
Okay, so God is unconditionally non-dependent and upon which everything depends. So from a Christian theistic point of view, all Christians would hold to the idea that God is unconditionally non-dependent, and he would be the personal absolute.
So I'm sorry. I understand that this is what you believe about a God, but the statement, so all Christians agree on X, is one that I don't think can be said about anything.
No, this is not controversial. God,
I agree with you that it's not controversial. However, I don't know that other Christians would do that, right? Or what your definition of Christian is, or whether you count Mormons, right? Like those words may very well be words that Christians object to because they're not in the Bible, right?
I'd like to get to the question.
Yeah. So
I'd like to get to the question. Okay.
Right.
So God is defined as the creator of all things. So if God is the creator of all things, then by definition, he's unconditionally non-dependent. Since you lack belief in God, all right? So, for example, in the Christian theistic position, if we say the grass is green, then the intelligibility of the grass being green would depend upon God as that which is unconditionally non-dependent, since he's the creator of all things.
So to be clear, anything at all would depend on God creating.
I'm trying to get to my question.
All right,
okay?
yeah.
I'm just giving you a lead up to the question.
Yeah.
All right. So in the Christian theistic perspective, which I hold to, the intelligibility of any stated fact would only be in virtue of God because God is unconditionally non-dependent. But since you have a lack of belief in God.
Yeah, that hasn't met its burden of proof.
Then what is it? Then what is it in your worldview that is unconditionally non-dependent and an impersonal absolute that will provide for the intelligibility of any assertion? What is that?
Yeah, I don't assert that there is such a thing.
Correct.
Okay,
yeah.
then you will destroy.
No, I don't, because the world.
Well, you haven't heard my
No, you haven't heard the full content of my response. The world does not live or die or be destroyed or created based on what I believe about it. I exist in a very, practically unfathomably for humans, large universe. And if I died tomorrow, absolutely nothing except, the nature of me being alive would change. So whether or not I have a complete understanding of the universe doesn't change anything about it.
And it's also not absolute, period.
Here's the problem, right? If you're going to state any fact, a fact is only a fact with respect to the system. And the system is going to have to contain a foundation.
Sure.
Whatever is unconditionally non-dependent. Now,
can you give me the case that must be true? That there must be a thing that is that. Because at the present moment, the best of human ingenuity and understanding at the present moment has come up with Big Bang cosmology.
No, that has nothing to do with it. You're confusing.
You're talking about existence and things existing, and the universe as we know it.
Right,
the current greatest model is that. Yeah,
no, I'm not talking about cosmogony. Okay, so what I'm talking about is metaphysics, which is even beyond that.
Which is sorry. Now, when you say metaphysics, do you mean the existence of things?
Cutting me off. You keep cutting me off when I'm trying.
I'm asking clarifying questions.
Yeah. I know that, but I haven't finished, and you keep on. You've interjected or cut me off at least 4 times.
I'm sorry.
Now I'd like to finish. Now, one will have to hold consciously or unconsciously that something is See, there you go again. You didn't even let me finish. You see,
what? Nobody interrupted you.
I did say no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're doing it again right now. Now. Either you will hold that something is unconditionally non-dependent, or you will make assertions that are not derived from something that is unconditionally non-dependent. Therefore, the assertions would have no basis. So do you believe that any of your assertions as an atheist have an ultimate basis to them?
Okay. At the present moment, I assert that I am holding this coffee cup. The basis for that is the coffee
my
cup.
question.
I'm giving you an
That's not my
example that
question.
demonstrates
Please
the
let him
answer to your
finish, sir.
question. Yes, I'm giving you an example that demonstrates the answer to my question, which is the as best we can tell facts about reality.
You don't understand the question.
No, I do. So whether or not I have,
you don't.
whether or not I have a metaphysical worldview at all, does not affect my ability to say there is a coffee cup here because I am not talking about metaphysics. Earlier in this conversation, when I brought up cosmology, you said, no, metaphysics is beyond that. Well, fantastic. I'm holding a coffee cup.
No, you're not understanding my question.
You're not understanding my objection to it.
No, I do understand your objection, and
All
I'm
right,
also
proceed.
telling you you're not understanding my question. Now, I'm asking you is what ultimately provides for the intelligibility of any stated fact. Whether you say you're holding your coffee cup or the green grass is blowing in the wind, I'm asking you, in order for a fact to be a fact, it will be ultimately derivative of something that is unconditionally non-dependent. Now,
I don't believe that
reject
assertion is
okay,
true.
do you reject that?
No, I
reject
don't
that?
accept it. There's a difference.
Okay, no. Okay, not accepting it. Not accepting it means.
Let me ask.
Let me finish.
Yeah, no, because I believe that my answer was unclear just now. When you say, do I reject that, do you mean I accept the opposite, or do you mean I do not hold that to be true?
Either you accept that
or you do not accept.
intelligibility.
Yeah.
I'll try to explain it to you. Listen. When one makes a predication or a statement of fact, the metaphysical intelligibility of any stated fact will either be in virtue of something that is unconditionally non-dependent. You either accept that or you don't accept it.
Give me a reason to accept that.
No, I ask you, do you accept it or not?
At the present moment, I do not hold that to be true, so I believe that's no.
That's an even worse position. Now, the reason
it's an even worse position than what?
I'll try to explain it to you. It's a worse position than affirming that the intelligibility of any fact that you state is derivative of something that is unconditionally non-dependent.
Cool.
Now what you're saying is...
Persuade me that that's true.
No, you're not understanding it. Let me finish and I'll explain it to you. Now, the intelligibility of any stated fact will either be in virtue of something that is unconditionally non-dependent, or you will not accept that. So then let me ask you this question. Since you do not accept that intelligibility depends upon something ultimate, where does intelligibility come for any stated fact with respect to your model of reality? Where does it come from?
So we have two problems. One, I don't believe that you've sufficiently defined intelligibility. I don't believe, as best I can understand, what you've described as intelligibility is a quality of a thing. It's a quality of a human's ability to understand something. And two, well, I have an explanation, and if you don't understand my explanation, provide your own, is a textbook example of an argument from ignorance logical fallacy. So
no, I haven't made any argument at all to you. All I've simply asked you is...
Do you believe that your question supports the conclusion...
You keep cutting me off.
Yes, I do.
There we go again.
Do you believe that your question supports the conclusion that everything that exists that every assertion made must ultimately rest on your doodad over there? Do you believe that, then what is your basis in any way relates to the, supporting your conclusion?
Okay, so you're done interrupting?
Are you going to answer my question?
No, well, I didn't finish my point. You see, you rudely cut me off. Okay?
I'm very rude.
Now, the point is yeah, you are rude. And I'll tell you right now, I don't care if you're the host of the show, you're rude.
Oh my.
The question I'm at, oh my. Now, the point is simply this is, intelligibility for any stated fact will be in virtue of the system or the model of reality that it comes from. That model of reality will have to have a foundation for the intelligibility of the system itself. So if you say, I don't need anything that is unconditionally non-dependent as the foundation of my system, then what you are admitting, whether you realize it or not, is that the intelligibility of your assertions doesn't depend upon anything.
Yeah, so here's the problem is I haven't said that.
Okay, so does intelligibility for any stated fact in your model of reality, is it in virtue of an absolute or not?
No,
I don't have a conclusion one way or the other.
So you have no basis for your assertions then, is that correct?
No, I told you earlier what that was. Listen, you've been making the case.
No, the basis
You've been
will
making
be
the case.
that
Now
the
you're
foundation-
interrupting me, sir. Yeah, you've been making the case. You've been making the case that the intelligibility of any assertion depends upon your conclusion being true. Please make that case.
I'm asking you,
Yes.
how do you have intelligibility without a foundation for your system? Can you explain that?
I need you to define intelligibility.
Intelligibility, it means that for any stated fact, it means something in reference to the foundation of your model of reality.
Reality. As can possibly be
What is
perceived by myself and other human beings.
Okay. Does the intelligibility of when you state facts, does the intelligibility depend upon the foundation of your model of reality?
No, it goes.
No,
the foundation
it depends
is
on reality.
usually an evidence base,
Yeah.
meaning that we go.
You're not understanding this.
No,
Yeah.
I understand
No,
it at
no.
all. It sounds like you're
Human
word
perception.
salading us, sir.
Yeah.
Evidence is a contingency situation. The
It's also
foundation
not an
of your
absolute
model-
either, which you seem to be proving right now.
You're not understanding it, man. You're not understanding
Oh, I'm
it
not
at
understanding
all.
you at all. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's going right over your head. So I'll be glad to go over it again very briefly.
Oh, no.
No. So
Yeah,
you're not
good.
understanding what I'm asking you for.
No.
I'm asking you to defend
of any
your
such thing-
assertion that intelligibility depends on those things. The last time I said that, you said, what I'm
I will
doing
defend-
is asking you a question. Please defend the
intelligibility
case
requires-
for your conclusion.
intelligibility-
Go.
Intelligibility requires a context and an ultimate context. Do you accept that?
I don't know what you mean by ultimate context.
Okay, context means the system from which predications and facts come. Do you understand that?
Yes. Is that different than an ultimate context?
No. When you have a model of reality, a fact only means something with respect to the system that it is spoken from. Do you accept that?
I don't think that you have clearly stated what it is that you mean. So, no, a statement about a fact about reality is only valuable in terms of how accurate it is to reality. Whether or not I have a metaphysical justification
you didn't
for
understand what I did.
my statement is irrelevant.
Yeah, you didn't understand what I just said. You're just being argumentative at this point. I'll explain it to you again. A fact only means
Listen, so
respect to the system.
if
Do you understand that? How can a fact mean something outside of any context?
here, hold on a second, because my co-host is in the audience today and would love nothing more than to talk to you next week. And we're actually running up towards the end of the show, and I haven't even thanked patrons. I will apologize for the level of rudeness that I've subjected
haven't even
you to.
understood half of what I've said.
Yes, and if you would like to call back next week, I know that my co-host probably has spent more time researching this.
Are you unable
and
dealing with the question?
And in the meantime, I will be able to communicate with you over email and also to look up the history of metaphysics and philosophy on these topics and have a better, more informed conversation. Additionally, I apologize for the rudeness I've subjected you to in this call.
Just running out the clock.
No, I'm not. I'm asking you to call back next week when we have even more time. I'm not running out the clock.
Okay,
I'm asking you to go to overtime.
How much time is left?
Well, to be
Not
clear,
enough time
to
for
be clear,
you on
there's
this portion of the show.
Yeah, to
now,
be clear-
I'm not going to apologize for being rude here.
yeah, to be clear, EF.
You can be rude if you want. I don't care.
So EF, there are 3 other callers, and a lot of them have been waiting since even before the show started.
Right. So because because you want to be argumentative, you cut me off 6 or 7 times, and then you brush me off.
So right
okay?
now,
Because
I'm
you're-
trying to offer you the opportunity to be the very first caller next
no,
week.
because you can't answer the you can't answer
Do
the
you
question.
want
wanna
to
go
have
another
more
question,
time to talk
you
about
wanna-
this
if you wanna go
with
on
a
to
person
other
who's
calls,
more
fine.
interested in it or not?
So you're not able.
I'm
to
sorry,
answer the
who's
question.
interrupting who and being argumentative now?
Yeah, so in other words, you're just getting rid of me because you don't want to answer the question.
Listen to me, EF.
Yeah, you are.
Listen to me, EF.
Time for
Listen to
other
me,
callers.
EF.
You have time for
Listen to
my
me, EF.
question.
Listen to me, EF. I don't think you've understood what I'm saying.
Oh, I've understood you already.
Have you understood the part where I said you can call
I
in?
understand the part
No.
where you cannot answer my
All right, EF, you're not. I haven't hung up on you. You're on hold. Do you want to have, I don't know, probably a whole 20 minutes, however long Eric and I will talk to you, all of next week? You will be the first caller. So this, we're running out of time will not be an issue. Do you want to continue to have this conversation or not? You're back on.
How can you be running out of time when you have 3 other callers? Now, I'd like to finish my question.
EF, no. Listen very, very carefully. I'm going to give you one last chance.
Yeah, I already heard you. So
All right, cool. So is this you not accepting the chance to call back in next week?
So you can't answer
So
the question,
is this
can
you accepting or
you're a-
or not
so you're a-
accepting
so
my
you're-
offer to
yeah,
call
so-
back next week?
So you're a deer in the headlights and you can't answer my question.
Oh my God.
can you?
I hope that you call back
Right
next
about it.
week. Eric is here. Please listen back to this part right here where you're dropped.
Yeah.
But listen back to this part where I say, yeah, call back next week. I'm not a deer in the fucking headlights. I answered your questions. Your claim of, you can't know anything or you can't say anything without a metaphysical basis. You need a context for things. You need an ultimate context for things. Actually, no. The way that all of the fucking humans everywhere, including yourself, interact with reality depends on our ability to perceive it, and within that, our ability to communicate with each other. Beyond that, philosophical arguments for the metaphysical basis for a human in order to be able to assert things truly on a deeper level are interesting and informative and not dependent on a fucking god.
Mm-hmm. It's okay, Jamie.
And with that, yes, thank you. When I don't know, maybe that's the patient chair and this is the frustrated chair. I think that's what this is.
Really, I wouldn't have given them that. I mean, really. You know, when people start thinking that they can commandeer the time on the show, it would be top. Sorry, I will go sister girl and hood on somebody. They would have to go.
What I will say is he got agitated very early because I wasn't going to let him give a 10-minute spiel about
they're not owed that on any
to be clear, what I needed to do was do a more first interruption more politely and say, please define intelligibility. Is it a quality of reality or a description of our ability to understand it? Needed to be the first thing that I had interrupted with. But in any case, I'd like to take the opportunity now. Don't go away. Don't hit that dial. Don't hang up if you're on the line. I'm going to get to you. But we have 5 patrons to thank. What? Top patrons. Woo! So I would like to thank Neil, Nando, Lynette, Janet. Oh my God, I skipped them in order. Wow, I'm really good at this. I do this for a non-living. Would you believe that? Every week. Neil Bradley, Matt Mayer, Nando Gonzalez, Lynette Ann Cross, and Janet Reyes are our top 5 patrons this week. If you would like to be counted in that list, or eventually when I talk Eric into naming other patrons that aren't just the top 5, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. And hopefully that little bit of whatever I did with my voice helps.
If I may, Jamie, I'm sorry. I'd
of
like
course.
to thank Cherie Kennedy. She's watching right now. She just purchased a coffee mug, and a shot glass from our online store. And that is another way you can support Black non-believers. We do have a slew of merchandise, some of which is here in the studio with us. And also that is available online. So, of course, we appreciate your tax-deductible donations, but also you can purchase our product. We have swag. If you'd like to represent our organization, you are more than welcome to do so. So please visit our website at blacknonbelievers.org for more info.
Yeah. And actually, you can see a mug here. Boom. And I'm sure in a minute, Eric will take the opportunity to walk in because he's actually wearing a Black Non-Believers t-shirt that can be purchased online. I think they'll find it by Googling Black Non-Believers.
And just there's a store tab on our website. So, yes.
All right. Let's take Let's take Matt in Wyoming. Matt, you're on the
Hello,
air
Matt.
with.
Hi, guys.
Hi. $10 says this call is less frustrating than the last one.
I would bet so. I'm frustrated. I was just listening.
Yeah, the audience, different audience members at different times were doing different hand gestures. So your frustration is not alone.
Oh, Hugh came into it wanting to be a bully.
I did, or he did.
He did.
No, he did. Yeah.
Yeah. That it probably didn't help that he got so agitated so quickly when I interrupted him. But
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. I think he came into it agitated. I don't think it was you guys at all. Yeah.
I assume the best in people. But what did you want to talk about today, Matt?
Well, briefly, really quick, I was inspired to call in the first place by Frode, and I just wanted to send a big thanks to him because his bravery has been very inspiring to me.
Thank you. See, you're doing good. For a split second, I could have sworn you were going to say I was inspired to call in by Jesus, and I was going to be really off. But no. So you're inspired to call in. Shout out to Frode. But
I was hoping I could briefly tell my story of why I deconverted.
Oh, well, congratulations. And yes, of course.
All right. Well, thank you. I was Christian most of my life. I'm 33 now, and it's only been about 10 months or so since I deconverted.
Do you know the day? Because you can celebrate your atheist birthday.
Not specifically. I think it was in March, and it was largely watching episodes of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience that helped. So thank you very much for that.
You guys are doing very good work.
Yeah, I agree.
De-preaching to the masses.
When I was 12, I had a bona fide experience with God. A full-on God entered my life in a roaring way. When people talk about how those experiences have to be genuine, I feel the need to share my story because I think I'm pretty good proof that the human brain is capable of some amazing things all on its own. I was dealing with bullying really, really heavily.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I'm hardly alone in that. It eventually, when I was 12, reached the point where I decided I was going to commit suicide. And the night before I was going to go in with it, I prayed. I prayed for a long time. I fell asleep praying and sobbing because I wanted a reason to live. And I had a dream that night where I met an amazing woman and I fell in love with her. And I'd never felt that before in my waking life. So at the end of the dream, this message just imprinted itself in my mind. This, if you want this, you can't give up. If you ever want this, you have to stay. And I believed that God had answered my prayers. And I met that woman years later. We were friends for years. We got married. We were together for 10 years before we married, come to that. And over most of those 10 years, even though I wasn't really willing to look at it, she became more and more abusive all the time. It was emotional for the longest time. Eventually, it became physical and finally sexual. And that's when I left. It's leaving my wife that largely challenged a lot of my beliefs. My beliefs were centered around love, around divine love, around these kinds of gifts only being possible if the universe had intrinsic order to it. And it was realizing that those beliefs kept me in a relationship where I was tortured. We all want to believe so much in the things that we core our lives around, like love. But as Mark McGee just pointed out in the chat, what is divine love? You know? I also think I have an answer to Frode when he was wondering, well, what do you replace God with? Because I was lucky. I grew up on Star Trek and I grew up on secular humanism. Yeah. My morals have never been challenged in losing my faith. You know, I never wanted to get into heaven. That was never a goal. I thought you should be doing good because you want to do good. Yeah. You should be doing good because you want this world to be a better place.
Yeah.
And we can make ourselves believe the most amazing things to defend beliefs that we feel that we need, like God. And when you lose those things, there's still the world that you always knew. There's still the world where I could go outside and stare up at the stars and wonder at the hugeness of the universe, at the unbelievableness of all of it. And none of that disappeared when I decided to finally admit God isn't real. And it's been knowing people like you guys, knowing people who are intelligent and out here fighting for a better world, not because of a reward, but because that world is worth believing in. That is it always has been bigger than any of our conceptions of God. The world we are building together is bigger than any conception of God anyone has ever come up with. And I look at the stars when I need to remember that. And Frode, you're in great territory for looking at the night sky. Go check out the Milky Way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I know very little of astronomy and don't have a sufficient understanding of cosmology or anything beyond it, evidently. Yeah, but the world is a wonderful place, and I'm glad that you were able to make it through those rough times in your life and come out the other side a better and probably stronger person.
The other reason I'm calling is that a lot of that abuse has left me very socially isolated, and this is a community that I want to be a part of. And this is me putting my voice out there because I haven't been willing to let my voice be out there for almost 10 years now, and I want to be a part of this community. Specifically, I want to make secular humanist video games because I've wanted to make video games my whole life, and I think there's a market for us.
Yep. I don't play a lot of video games, but I will play a lot more in direct relation to how much the subject matter is interesting to me. There is a video game that I played very poorly when I was working with Eric to potentially release like a live stream of us, oh, look, it's these two, schlemiels that we know that are atheists playing video games. Look how terrible Jamie is at video games. Isn't that hilarious? And we played The Binding of Isaac, which is interesting to me because it clearly has a religious context and is something I'm interested in.
Pretty eviscerates Christianity, I would say.
Yep, a little bit. At least, at the very least, televangelists. So, yeah. So, I mean, a couple things. One, I look forward to playing your first game. And two, I mean, sure, there's some reasonable doubt about whether or not you're going to end up creating it. I look forward to playing your first game. You should do it, which is actually how I encouraged Eric to release the first episode of his podcast, the Atheist Podcast, which is out now. Yeah, Eric is thanking me in the crowd for mentioning it. It is. It's good. But yeah, that, and there is, an online community that we have fostered and that we grow, and that's very positive, and I would encourage you to get in touch with us there. Send us an email,
I think
tweet something at me.
I think I'm going to head directly to the Reddit page as soon as I'm done here, and I'm going to talk to people about what kind of video games they'd want to see. I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. Mandisa, I'm really glad that you were on today and that I got a chance to talk to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for calling in, and thank you for sharing your experience.
Yeah, thank you. It's why we do the show. And what I will say is if you'd like to join Matt on the Reddit, it's reddit.com/r/talkheathen, coincidentally enough. But thank you for calling in, Matt. Thank you for sharing your story. And, just like Frode's story helped, inspire you and helped you get to a place where you could put your voice out there, you putting your voice out there will help as well.
Mm-hmm.
You guys mind if I call back at some point?
Oh, well, we hate repeat callers here. To be clear, Rob is a repeat caller, so yes, please
do call.
Yeah. Give us balance out the nature of our calls here. Right.
I've also got the distant idea that I might call into Atheist Experience and challenge Matt Dillahunty at some point, being willing to play devil's advocate. But, oh man, is that a scary prospect.
Oh, you're fine. He's Nice. So if you ever make it to Austin, let us know in advance. We'll make sure we all gather around and throw a parade or something. But yeah, thank you for calling in and sharing your story, Matt.
Thanks.
Right.
Bye.
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 All right, let's take, I'm going to butcher this name. Is it Shalev?
Yes.
All right, sorry. This call is already a success for me.
I answer to the thing that's the closest. If they get close enough, then I answer.
Oh, okay. But if not, then not. You just give them the silent treatment till they try again.
Oh, totally. I ignore them forever.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm feeling a little bit goofy because that really long, frustrating call is over. So.
Oh, yes, the word salad call.
So I'm in like a.
I didn't listen to some of it.
Oh. I'm sorry.
You spared yourself.
Yeah. So, So the note says that you're having some issues with family relations. Hopefully, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so I grew up as the evangelical Pentecostal Christian in the very conservative realm of Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved from West Virginia to Seattle, and that's a little bit more of a liberal area. Mm-hmm. So the brand of Christianity there is a little bit different. And then I started having issues with my faith because, the New Testament and the Old Testament don't quite work together, and I was still a literal Christian at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So then I converted to Judaism. So I went from fundamentalist Christian to Orthodox Judaism.
Ooh,
my family didn't quite know what to do with that because I still believed in God, but I didn't believe in what they believed.
Yeah.
So it was difficult for them to deal with.
You were incomplete.
Then I just needed Jesus.
Yeah.
And then about a year ago, I went through a terrible thing with my mother-in-law, who she was pretty much just emotionally and verbally abusive.
Mm.
And then through that whole experience, I ended up becoming an atheist because she ended up doing the thing of, like, her abuse was tied in with God, so I was trying to figure out how all the stuff that she says about God actually works.
Mm. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure you know how that whole rabbit hole goes.
Yeah.
So I'm glad
to hear that you are in the group of people that get subjected to that, struggle with that, and come to the conclusion that, no, I don't deserve this. Because there are people that go the other way. Yeah, that's a hard hill to climb.
Yeah. So now that I'm no longer believe in any sort of God, I'm pretty much the black sheep of my family who needs to be saved. Mm-hmm. So I'm the angry, hurt atheist who needs everyone to go save them. And I've been trying to explain why I find religion in general to be hurtful and manipulative. Mm-hmm. But then usually the response is, well, you can't use basically bad Christians to tell you what Christianity is. But how are you supposed to tell the difference?
Yeah. That's those Christians don't count, no true Scotsman sort of thing.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, well, those aren't real Christians.
Yeah.
Or those people are Christians, but they're like,
they're bad at it. Oh, those Christians, they're amateurs. Don't talk to them. Yeah. We're the professional Christians, right? I've heard things like that before. Yeah, like I have a friend who will admit that Hitler thought he was a Christian. He just was bad at it. He was doing it wrong. So it's sort of like, okay, well, at least you're not.
My family just believes that he was an atheist, and
of course
people want to rewrite history.
Yep. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
So the other issue is that I am bisexual. My family also doesn't like that either. And
I was tempted to say, go figure, but. Sorry.
So my mom is upset that I've turned towards bisexuality and gone away from God. And she thinks that since I accepted my bisexuality, that has led me to not believe in God.
Yeah.
Which is partially true, I guess.
Okay.
I mean,
because I don't it obviously doesn't work with the Bible.
No.
It doesn't work.
Most instances where women get respect don't work with the Bible.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's partially true that I wanted to be happy and not hate myself. And then I couldn't make the Bible work with me being happy. So.
I mean, it may not feel like it. I mean, one, you know how difficult this has been for you, and it is difficult for anyone that goes through this experience or any experience like it. But two, I mean, we've only been talking for, maybe 8 minutes or something, but just the way you're describing this lets me know that you have a strength of character that I probably envy quite a bit, just based on how well you're able to respond to these things. I don't know what the time frame is or how long you've had to deal with and overcome these things, but it seems like you're climbing these hills that are very steep and difficult to get through, if you don't mind metaphysical language too much coming from a Pentecostal tradition. But yeah, but it seems like you're doing a really good job and finding your way. But I can understand that no matter what happens, it's sort of like, well, family, these people raised me, and I know exactly what it is to not be able to, live and let live. I'll get past this, even if my family has a problem with it, because that's the power that family has.
Well, it's also that they want me on Facebook with them, but then they're conservative evangelical Christians who love Trump, and then they want me to not. They want me to not respond to anything that they post.
Yeah, well, if you don't mind me interjecting,
of course,
I'm saying that you have the right to your agency and the right to your happiness. And it is a difficult thing to navigate and also have to put boundaries on family members. But it is necessary because oftentimes family can be the worst ones for you. And this is something that people don't want to admit, but especially when you have family members that are that close-minded and they want you to just go along with what they want. They aren't looking out for your best interest. And like Jamie said, you had the courage to realize that, to come to terms with your sexual identity, and therefore understood that this God that you once believed in, it doesn't reconcile that this God you believed in is happy with you being yourself. So therefore, and then also based on the lack of evidence, you've concluded that more than likely this God does not exist, which doesn't make you evil. And I think that that's what part of the issue may be, is that there is this fear that, of course, now your family thinks you're going to hell or you're going to be eternally damned.
They've been worried about my children. Like, am I going to tell my children? What am I going to tell my children?
Right. And my thing is they seem to be awfully concerned about your life when perhaps they should be worried more about their own.
Yeah.
So, there is possible to tell, to let them know, look, this is my life. I'm doing the best I can for my children. I love them. That hasn't changed. And so, this notion that somehow you're turning, you're flipping and you're just going to the ways of the devil, and that's probably what the notion is, is just utterly ridiculous. But that's their fear. It doesn't have to be yours.
It's more whenever they question my parenting that I get really upset.
Yeah.
Understandably so.
Yes, absolutely.
Like whenever they do the thing of I've this one more came from my mother-in-law where apparently, because I made some sort of joke, I now wanted to turn my husband gay and then destroy the souls of my children.
Oh, dear. Jeez.
Sorry. Every time that I hear one of these things, and it's not directly my family, because I hear things like that from my family as well, I'm actually tempted to make the flippant remark that I think of, which is like, really? So I have the power to destroy souls?
Apparently I do.
Yeah. Where's your God now?
Apparently I do. Apparently I want to make my husband gay because then he wouldn't love me anymore because then he'd be gay. But apparently I want that because that would make me happy.
Oh, boy.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
I know. That's me.
What? Yeah, that one's gonna boggle my mind for a while.
And don't worry, I haven't figured it out either.
There might not be something there to figure out, to be honest. Yeah, so what I will say is dealing with family is always complicated, and what ends up happening when there's a disagreement like this, particularly if this is something that you've shared with your family for a long time, is that relationships get taken for granted, right? Oh, you will always be my child. Yep, but that doesn't always mean that we're going to be as close as we have been in the past, or because I'm an adult, you're an adult, and the way you're treating me is not something that I can accept, right? And that's absolutely difficult. It's sort of one of the hardest things about growing up is realizing that your parents are people and not either angels that are perfect or demons that are trying to destroy your life, which tends to be the other ways that goes. And so, I mean, you have this bond with them that, you don't necessarily have.
The other thing that I don't understand... So the other thing that I don't understand is they like to use the phrase of like, well, these people aren't real Christians. But I grew up with them, and I remember all the things that they said. And I remember being in a church service where they talked about how the gays were going to destroy America. And I remember my dad sitting next to me, nodding along, and everybody else in the service saying amen.
So they are being real Christians.
My father and everybody else in the service not real Christians either?
Right, yeah.
Well, wait, wait, are you saying that their stance on the gay destruction of America has changed, for lack of better phrasing?
I don't know now.
So I've seen that as well, right?
But then they also say that gay people are sinning, and that they're basically making America terrible.
Do they say that in a context directly referring to you? Because there's a similar experience that I've shared with basically, they're family friends, but they're basically aunt and uncle to me. That when they learned that I had now dated not one but two different men or whatever, different times, but it was something that they knew, but they didn't bring up directly. But then, we'd be hanging out and, she's basically my cousin / sister wanted to watch, Project Runway or something. They're like, change the channel. No one wants this. It's only you. And she's like, well, maybe Jamie wants to watch it as well. And it's sort of like, I know, like, one, that's not really how being gay works. I don't know how to sew. But two, it's like, it's something that they know, but that they have like whatever issues dealing with, but they still know me. And so they choose not to make an issue of it. And that's a good sort of détente to meet with, like a neutral zone to meet. Yeah. When it comes to them having something to say about your kids, step one is find the situation where they stop that crap. But like step two, trying to reach like a deeper understanding, right? Like everyone should be jealous of Dan Barker that he deconverted and then so did his parents. I don't know. Maybe he found a cheat code or something, but yeah. But I feel like trying to find a way where they can, like Matt's parents, accept that, oh, maybe you're of the devil and maybe you're sinning and maybe you will destroy America. But, oh, we made this pot roast and it's going to be really delicious. Come share it with us. Like, if nothing else, fundamentalist Christians are very well practiced at compartmentalizing. And so if they can put in one compartment, we love our daughter, and in another compartment, well, I like, Trump and gays are bad, then at the very least, your family relations will be bolstered by that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some of my family has done the thing that you just described, and then I've watched other people in my family get more vocal about it.
Yeah. But do they
So, like,
say
where
that
they
you
need
should
to
leave
go-
the house and never return and be gone forever?
They haven't said that, but they'll be more vocal in my face about how they need to pray for me because I've given over to the sin of homosexuality. Because they won't say bisexuality because that doesn't exist. But I've given over to the sin of same-sex attraction.
Okay. It is sort of interesting that they've come up with a more antiseptic term for these things rather than just calling everything sodomy now. It's weird to say that that's progress, but it probably is. It's a step forward for them. I don't know. Well, so here's what I will say. We have one last caller to get to, and I have no idea what words my producer is going to say to me for going this far over time. But I do want to hear from you again and have you call back as long as you're willing. And I know that Eric will want to talk to you about this as well because he has, a larger family with more experiences like this. He's smiling at me.
Yeah, I have a nice large family of conservatives.
Yeah, well, my family's split, so Thanksgiving's
conservative
always
evangelical
fun.
Christians.
Yeah. My family is split, and most of them are lawyers, and the other half argue like they're lawyers. So Thanksgiving was a test in argumentation, always.
Well, that sounds like the Jewish side of my family.
Okay. Well, L'chaim.
Where we argue about everything just because we can.
Yes.
Most of the time.
Yes. Oy vey, right? Here. Well, anyway, I want to move on and catch this last caller because I don't know how long he's going to go.
Okay.
But I hope that you call back and then you get in touch. And it may not seem like it even in the moment, but or maybe it does to you because you called in. But having someone to talk to that understands, oh yeah, you and your family had this conversation. I've been there is helpful. So find us online as well.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Shalev.
Shalev.
Shalev. Right.
It's Shalev, yes.
All right. Well, I think that was a good call. We have just one more.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Uh-oh.
No, I think it's fine. I was just sort of...
yes.
I'm trying to recenter myself because I got way too goofy there in the last two calls. All right. Jason in New York. How are you doing?
All right. Hey. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you for waiting, I think, basically the entire show.
All right. All right. I just want to start off by giving you a little background where I'm coming from. So I started off, I was raised Jewish and stuff, all that. Went to temple, every Sunday and Monday, got my bar mitzvah. But, it wasn't really forced upon me. My parents didn't really care what I believed, per se. So after that, I think I was, strong atheist. You could say I watch your guys' show all the time, and I watch all the highlights.
Thank you, yeah.
Matt Dillahunty and stuff, and that's just awesome.
Like and subscribe.
But, yeah. Always.
Sorry.
And then, so, as I got older, I just became an atheist and stuff, and then I had an experience, I guess you could say, with a little bit of, help from drugs. That's irrelevant.
I was going to say you had a theist experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. So I wouldn't say I believe in, just God is, the same way as, the old Jewish God and all that. I just started believing in something, I don't know, just that there was some organization. I started seeing that and just started noticing, I don't know how to explain certain things. But then my main question is, what do you guys think of what higher consciousness means? Let me get your definition.
My experience with the phrase higher consciousness is limited almost exclusively to people that believe in a variety of things that I would describe as woo. For a couple of reasons. So one, consciousness is this concept that it's there needs to be a word for the half understanding of things, right? The understanding of how to use this in context, but that is limited such that that context is still almost entirely fluid, right? Like people know what a vibration is, right? Like if you said, is my hand vibrating right now? People would be able to say yes. For those of you not watching, I moved my hand back and forth very quickly because that's what vibration is. However, people talk about, oh, I'm getting bad vibes. That means vibration. There's a vibrational energy. Because again, energy is like this, where it's people have a general understanding of what it means, right? And if they think about it, they'll go, my car has energy. But if you ask them, what is the actual definition of the word, they don't have it, right? And so the same thing happens with consciousness. When people are talking about higher planes of consciousness, higher levels of consciousness, lower planes of consciousness, lower levels of consciousness, and it allows people that are trying to gain an understanding of the world and that are going about it by feeling it, right? What does the world feel like it is? Well, I feel this connection to the rest of the world, and it relates something to parts of my mind I don't understand, consciousness. So now there's a collective unconsciousness of the world, a consciousness field, and that's how we're all connected. And so in my experience, it is a phrase without a real definition. I don't know what you had to say about that, Mandisa.
Well, it does remind me of sort of my upbringing, and for those who aren't aware, I wasn't formally raised Christian, but I was raised like with the Black nationalist community, and that word is used constantly, consciousness and this
in like
higher
a spiritual sense?
Spiritual, and some people would maybe define it as being, I guess, a bit more educated or a bit more knowledgeable than others. I mean, and if that's what you're referring to, then just say it.
Yeah. You mean being conscious of the world?
Yes, being conscious of the world and what is going on around them, and some of it may imply a more spiritual consciousness, or what they consider a more spiritual perspective as well, and they're thinking they're more in tune with, I guess, whatever they consider to be God, not necessarily of the Christian, not the Christian God or what have you. But like you said, it is very wooish. It is very existential in nature. So yeah, it does tend to be like a whole nother word salad thing too.
Yeah. So, what is it that you think of as higher consciousness?
Yeah, I'll give you what I think. All right, so, well, like the way I see it, like consciousness, we don't really understand where it comes from, or like what it is really, or why it's here, and like even to our level, like our consciousness, like we don't understand why a bunch of atoms form together to make cells, and a bunch of cells form together to make like a human, but like. That creates consciousness. We don't understand. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't know if anyone has figured it out or whatever. I just don't get what, so they come together.
So what I will ask, Jason, it just very quickly to distinguish is, when you're saying we don't understand, are you saying how or why? Because, like, I don't mean to delve into, like, we understand chemical bonds, but if you're asking, like, why are we here? Why is there consciousness? That's a more sort of... Okay. As far as I can see, there is no deeper meaning that comes from reality or physical existence, right? In the same way that atoms come together to form igneous rock, and it's why is that igneous rock specifically that way? Atoms come together through their various interactions and end up forming through the interaction of energy and matter, and a whole lot of, when a mommy and when two or more parents decide to raise a child, there's a child that is born either from a test tube or a live birth, and that is what creates a human. But if you're asking, is there like a deeper meaning, like God has given us purpose, I would say I don't see one.
I mean, I wasn't really saying why is it here. I'm saying like it is here. We understand that there is human consciousness. Understand that it's like it was caused by like cells coming together, forming your brain and all that. So I feel like it's not too big of a jump, and I don't know if it's true. This comes to my thought, like
just
why
kind of spitballing out there.
That humans coming together can create a larger consciousness that they're not aware of. Because, like, I doubt the cells in our body are aware that they've created this larger consciousness.
I would say, I don't think there's a definition of awareness that would mean that cells in our body are, right? In the same way that people say things like, oh, the computer knows this, which I've always found weird because I would say, no, it doesn't. But just because it doesn't operate like independent of intended instructions, right? But that's a distinction that's weird to think about and trying to describe when you're trying to help, your parent figure out where that email went of the phone. You don't bring up, well, actually, the computer doesn't know things. It's a series of ones and zeros activated by switches, etc. What I will say is, what I'm hearing from you is that you had an experience, I think you said helped by drugs, but in either case, you had an experience that is somehow related to you thinking about how magnificent and, depending on how you think about it, mysterious it is that through the course of events that have occurred in our universe, our cosmos, human beings can see, study, and understand the world around us.
Yeah. And, well, it's just mainly how, like,
I would say, it's a beautiful thing in the same way that with, 10 straight lines, an artist can create a picture, and I don't understand how they saw it, right? That's less magical than human consciousness, but it's really cool, I guess, is basically my answer to that.
Yeah. Well, then, it's just my question is, like, I'm not trying to make an assessment, asking a question. Do you think it's that large of a jump to say that if cells, like mere cells, can come together to make something as great as consciousness, as you said, why can't conscious humans coming together create, like, something that's bigger than us? And, like, an example of that is, like, ideas and, like ideologies, like, and even religions, like, they come together and then they have outcomes that we don't even understand. We don't understand why it happened. Like, we don't understand why. We can, like, look at
we can study history, but
like the logical causes as to why they turned out the way they did. But we don't know why ideas start turning into, like, they start morphing themselves. Maybe they have some sort of consciousness that, like, we're not aware of.
So what I will say is,
them up. Like, the idea that, like, do the cells drive our bodies or do we drive the cells? I think it goes both ways with ideas. Like, we drive the ideas drive us. And maybe somehow, in some way, they form as high as something.
So
maybe we can call it consciousness.
One of the things that I will offer, my producer is talking my ear that I need to wrap it up because he knows how long I can talk about these things. One of the things that I will say is when you come across a construction of trying to understand parts of reality and you're getting in a sort of hitch like this, where it's like, well, why can't human beings drive these ideas, or do ideas drive us? The thing that I always do is stop and I check my definitions, because until you ask, wait, when I'm referring to ideas in this case, what am I talking about? Because there are patterns and understandings that I can have that I can communicate to you verbally that you understand as well. That's pretty fucking awesome. We are one of a very few species that can do that, and we do it best, even though we're still bad at understanding each other. So it's sort of the nature of human understanding is what's happening. But when you start to talk about, do our cells drive us, you've diverged from human ideas, right? So our cells don't communicate with us. So at the very least, it's different in terms of, driving conversations in national politics versus, whether I get an my appendix removed. Appendectomy is what I was trying to say, right? Like I'm jumping back and forth between two parts of what you were talking about, so it's probably a little bit different. But I don't know if that is an additional thing to ponder when you're thinking about these things.
Okay, I do appreciate that.
Hey.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know if we have enough time, but.
Yeah, no, my producer and the ACA are in opposition to murder, but I don't want to tempt him. So I think we're going to have to wrap the show up here, but, I'm not sure how excited Eric is going to be to take that call. He may be. Yeah, he's given me the thumbs up. But also, email us, get in touch with us that way, because I can wax philosophical about ideas like this at length. But thank you for calling in, Jason. I'm going to have to let you go.
Bye-bye. Thanks for calling.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Call back. All right. Well, don't go away yet because there's a surprise ending, but that was our show.
Yay.
And yes, thank you, live studio audience. Thank you, Mandisa, for
thank you
sitting through
for
my very
having
lengthy
me here.
answers at the end. Are you familiar with the way that we try and end the show? Because we start by getting some love rings, and then what ends up happening is Eric tries to get me to say the words exactly correctly, and I rebel and say them in a different way. But the words that he tries to get me to say are, if you don't believe, you have your community here and we'll build community everywhere, or something along those lines. And if you do believe, we don't hate you, we just think you're wrong. And then Mark will try and cut it before I can mess it up and do that sort of thing. But
well, I think you got it right. So yeah.
Well, dang, I already said it, and now he's shouting, "Cut it!" Bye. We'll be back next week. Don't forget that Shelley Siegel has a concert, and that tomorrow there'll be a special episode of Godless Bitches. And another thank you to Mandisa Thomas, president, founder, lifeblood of Black non-believers, for gracing us with her presence.
And I will be back for the Atheist Experience. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Bye.